This is huge. Warhammer Opens are the biggest official tournaments that Games Workshop runs, and they finally came to Canada, allowing Canadians to finally play on home soil and not spend hundreds of thousands of dollars flying to the States. As well, most Canadians just don't feel comfy going to the States right now. So honestly, good move, GW. Though the choice of where Canada's first Warhammer Open was a shock to many. Edmonton, Alberta, the capital of my province, which shocked many of us because it wouldn't have been a bad idea to host it in Ottawa or Vancouver. However, this is where we learned that Western Canada has a larger wargaming community than the East, so that explains a lot. With all that said, seeing that the Warhammer Open was in Edmonton, and I lived only 4 hours away, and my most popular video is a tournament video, I know my calling! So after securing 3 tickets, 1 player ticket for me and 2 weekend passes for my wife, who this was their first convention, and my brother, who graciously offered to drive us up there and spend the weekend with us. We left our cat in the care of our roommate, and we took the 4-hour trek to GameCon Canada. When we arrived, the Warhammer Open was hosting a meet and greet for the players at the Chopped restaurant, which was cramped. Didn't help that it was hockey night, but hey, GW can't control nor predict the whims of hockey in Canada. Here, we got to meet some pretty cool and nice players, as well as getting the sick-ass swag box. From my town alone, we had 13 players show up, which was great for someone like me, who was extremely nervous to meet new people. After that, we went back to our Shining-esque hotel and got what rest we could for the tournament tomorrow. So, for those wondering, how does a Warhammer Open work? Well, when you sign up for an Open, you sign in with an app like Best Coast Pairings, and they use that app to track your wins, losses, points, and what army you and your opponent are running, and allows the organizers to check people's armies and see if army lists are legal. And for those who love 3D printing and using custom-made models, they want you to send pictures of your custom models to them 2 weeks prior to the event so they can check if your model is legal or not. Which, while not perfect, it's better than nothing. Now, in a Warhammer Open, it's not fully a bracket system. It's a win-loss system. So if you lose 2 games but win 1, you will face someone else who had lost 2 games but won 1. If you win 5 games, you'll face someone who also won 5 games. As well, for this tournament, we were given the new Tournament 2025 pack, with updated missions, objectives, and the new Challenger cards. Now, these cards were not liked by anyone I asked. How it works is that if you are 6 or more points behind at the start of a battle round, you draw a Challenger card, which acts as either an easily scored card or a single-use free army buff for that turn. These cards either let someone hang back by 6 points to make a massive explosion into the lead, or the point gain or stratagem is so small or not helpful at all that you might as well not have them. I do appreciate comeback mechanics, and if they fix the Challenger card system to be more of a risk and reward system, I'd actually like it. But with how it is, me and my fellow players had mixed feelings at best, but outright annoyance at worst. And this is my one of only 2 complaints about the weekend. But before we get to the major complaint, let's cover my army.
Because if you do fuck up, you're gonna have to answer to me.
I let my Discord vote on my army, and they all wanted me to rep the Thousand Suns again. At first, though, I was worried, because my book came late, thanks American Customs, and I was worried I wouldn't be able to play them with the book's delays. Then tech issues trying to get my book's download code to work, and then speed painting like crazy when I got my last model done, literally the day before we left. Sweet Jesus, the stress was awful. Either way, Thousand Suns got their new rules. Out with Cabal points, and welcome back ye old Psychic phase! So instead of managing a resource point pool, Thousand Suns can cast 4 Psychic spells during the shooting phase. By rolling 2d6, we can either get rerolls on a specific target, giving you an extra d6 of movement at the cost of not being able to charge, force lightning, and or increase the armor penetration of ranged weapons on a target. However, we can roll an additional d6 to try and push the power to overcharge, making those powers better. However, if you roll doubles or triples, your caster takes D3 mortal wounds, even if they didn't succeed in casting the spell, leading to a fun risk/reward system. Now, my army runs the Rubrique Phalanx Detachment, where my Rubric Marines or Scarab Occult Terminators are hit with an attack that does an unmodified damage of 1, my unit gets +1 to our armor save. Yes, my 40k veterans, all is dust is back! But with a caveat that stops us from breaking the game in half again. So yay! But not as big of a yay as you think. Now for what's in the army. I brought Ahriman, Arch Sorcerer of the Thousand Suns, the man who can't stop fucking up, and my beloved. Ahriman gives +1 to his spell casting, but he also allows you to redeploy up to 3 units before the game begins, making him an amazing unit for when you need to keep your opponent's deployments in mind. I also brought a Demon Prince with wings, an Exalted Sorcerer, and a Sorcerer in Terminator armor. I gave the Exalted Sorcerer the Risen Rubrique upgrade, which allows me to infiltrate either 2 Rubric Marine squads or 1 Terminator squad. For those that don't know, Infiltrate allows you to set up units outside of your spawn area, and somewhere outside of your opponent's spawn area, either giving you board control early on, or putting a threat on the board that your opponent can't ignore. Which makes it funny when you spook your opponent with where you're hiding things, then use Ahriman to move them to where your opponent's line is weaker. Then we have 3 5-man Rubric squads, 2 10-man Terminator squads, 1 5-man Terminator squad, and 2 Forge Fiends with ectocannons for some anti-armor firepower, as my army severely lacked anti-tank firepower. Man, if only those robots didn't sell out! The strategy of my army is simple. Hold the middle of the board and brawl it out with my opponent. My Rubrics can shrug off small arms fire, and a lot of additional abilities made my units extremely hard to hurt. So pushing me off objectives is like trying to get your friend to stop playing Balatro. Go on. Try. Now, with my army built up, painted, and sorting out my best coast pairings app being stupid and glitching out, let's get into the games. Worst thing that could possibly happen round 1 for me? Fighting's Death Guard. I literally said the counter to my army was Death Guard. The luck of the draw, chat! Fuck! Okay, so Death Guard have been the laughingstock of 10th edition. Their army had been hit hard with the nerf stick at the start of 10th, and their new book being released, it feels like a heavy overcorrection to the nerfs. Their army ability is Nurgle's Gift, an aura effect that starts at 3 inches, but grows to 9 inches by turn 3. The main effect is that it reduces the enemy unit's toughness by 1, but also the player can choose to add an additional debuff, which can be -1 to saves, -1 to hit, or -1 to unit's objective control value. Which against my army, that -1 to hit hurts a lot. So does the -1 to saves. My opponent ran the Virulent Victorum detachment, which makes it so that if his units leave an objective, that objective remains under his control, even when nothing is standing on it. Their army included 2 Lord Virulences, 2 Death Shroud Terminator units, a horde of Poxwalkers, 2 Defilers, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, 5 Foated Bloat Drones, 2 with Plague Throwers and 3 with Blight Launchers, and 3 Blight Haulers. Get used to seeing drones, by the way, because for some reason, GW looked at these things and decided that they would make my life a living hell. The first mission was Lynchpin, which makes you score 3 to 5 points per objective marker, and with my opponent's units sticking to each objective marker, it made it easier for him to score. I got the first turn, and it went very well. I secure the middle of the board and slowly whittle down his forces, killing a drone and a Plague Burst Crawler, while also cutting down some of his Poxwalkers. His turn 1 showed just how dangerous the Death Guard can be. His remaining Crawler fired into my bunched up units, and due to a new ability, punished me for stacking up. The ability does additional damage to units within 3 of the target his Crawler was shooting at. As well, the Blight Launchers are rough. D6 plus 2 shots, and getting more shots because of Blast at strength 10 damage 3? These things tore through any of my Terminators that they could see, which, oh boy, this was the perfect counter to my army if I ever fucking saw it! Turn 2 though, I kept the pressure on, killing his last Plague Burst Crawler, and we were both shocked that any unit I killed was being killed at the bare minimum I needed, which we're both having a laugh over, which almost distracted me from how his reinforcements destroyed my remaining hopes and dreams. His defilers rolled onto the board, and his Death Shroud Terminators landed and charged into my Terminators, tearing into my army and ripping out the heart of it. And I really felt it in my dice rolls, unable to hit his units, let alone hurt them. I managed to hang on until turn 5, but it was clear the game was over after my Demon Prince and remaining rubrics got slimed, losing 70 to 80 in an extremely close game. My opponent's name was Patrick, and despite Death Guard kicking my ass hard, the guy was super energetic and super cool. Genuinely a good lad to talk to. He ate lunch with us after round 1, and though the first game was a loss, it was a close loss, which told me, hey, we can do this. And we aren't aiming for top 8 anyway. If we can win one game this weekend, we can call this whole trip a success, which leads us into round 2. World Eaters, the faction whose new book not only showed how scary melee can be, but also what happens if you give the blood-soaked maniac a rapid-fire setting on tank cannons. However, this wasn't a tank list. It was a traditional Berserker Horde, using the Berserker Warband attachment, which gives their units +2 to their strength and +1 to attacks when their units charge. My opponent this time ran a Demon Prince of Khorne, Lord Invocatus, a Master of Executions, the brand new Slaughterbound unit, 2 Khorne Berserker units, a Rhino, 4 8-bound units, 2 regular, 2 exalted, a Forge Fiend with Ecto Cannons, 2 Jackal squads, a unit of Spawn, and Karn the Betrayer himself. This army does one thing, and it does it very well. Beating the shit out of anyone dumb enough to get close. Which, for someone who built his army around goading his opponent to come into the center...
I'm in danger!
The mission was Supply Drop, which basically has 2 objectives that will go away after turns 4 and 5, making it extremely hard to score in the late game. My single goal was to put pressure on one side of the board while slowly wrapping around and scoring whatever I could. Though turn 1 was uneventful, as my opponent knew that my shooting was extremely dangerous, and that my Terminators or Forge Fiends could devastate his units if he wasn't careful. However, I didn't want to get closer than I needed to, because yeah, even though I get +1 to my saves, 50 melee attacks will make you roll 1s eventually. However, eventually, something had to give, and I was able to lure out his Forge Fiend and an 8-bound unit, killing them both and starting the battle for real, with the majority of his force pushing on my right flank, while a token force was distracted by my Demon Prince who died brutally to the Slaughterbound. On my right flank, things were going back and forth. He'd kill some of my Terminators, but I'd cripple any unit he threw at me in doing so. I was able to grind through the hordes of crazy Berserkers, believe it or not. But the middle of the board was where things became dire, as he had 3 8-bound, his Slaughterbound, some Jackals, and a Rhino, which forced me into being more aggressive to push him off center. My remaining forces encircled his remaining infantry, and though I wasn't able to kill the Rhino, I was able to kill the last of his infantry, pushing him off of center, and ending our game with me winning 53 to 36. Hot damn was it brutal! World Eaters can keep the pressure on reliably, even on the back foot, and it was really touch and go. But remaining calm and backing up where I needed to and pushing everywhere else really helped me come out on top. I also haven't met a World Eaters player who didn't give me a good game. And hey, we got our 1 win, which is what we were aiming for, so I met the goal. Now it's just to see if we can keep it up, or if I got my 1 and only win here. Oh boy! You see, the problem with where I live is that I don't get to practice a whole lot against some armies, if at all. Hell, before this game, I've only fought tyranids once during 10th edition, meaning that I didn't have a whole lot of experience fighting them in this edition. However, the first shock was that my opponent recognized me, which threw me off, but hey, I guess that's what happens when you make videos. My opponent was running the Assimilation Swarm, which allows his units to revive 3 dead models for swarm units, or heal D3+1 on single model units. Which, when looking at his list, this guy wasn't running any swarms. This man was running nothing but monsters. He was running a Neurotyrant, the Swarm Lord, a Biovore, 3 Pyrovores, 2 Psychophages, 2 Exocrines, 2 Horuspexes, a Tyrannifex, and the piece de resistance of his list, 2 Norn Assimilators, which are basically the Tyranids versions of Imperial Knights. And these kaiju-sized bugs have a few abilities. For each assimilator, you can pick one objective marker on the board, and while that assimilator is sitting on its selected objective, its OC becomes 15, and it gets a 5+ Feel No Pain, making this beast even tougher when adding its stats and the regen ability on top of that. The mission was Purge the Foe, where you score points by killing enemy units and holding objectives, but also score more points if you kill and hold more than your opponent does. One of my favorite missions because it's a slug match style of mission. Now we come to the main problem for me. These are monsters, and some of them are even tougher than my anti-vehicle weapons, meaning that in a lot of ways, I don't have a way to reliably hurt all these big monsters. As well, if a Norn Assimilator is sitting on an objective, it's gonna be a chore to get it off. But I played passively, hiding away and using the terrain to my advantage to hide my units and wait for his giant bugs to get closer to me, so I could take advantage of my sheer weight of shots to hurt them. This is where we both learned how our armies just couldn't hurt each other reliably. My small arms fire could do a couple of wounds here and there, really helped out by my army spells, but it's still basically just smacking Godzilla with sticks. However, with my Terminator's -1 to wound, and my 2+ and 4+ invulnerable save, it made it extremely hard for even the Norm Assimilators to stomp through. So we have the immovable object being smacked by the unstoppable force, which basically led to this in the middle of the board. This was a true slug match, but it came down to me being able to kill 1 or 2 monsters per turn, while he was struggling to kill 2 to 4 Terminators a turn. And with my Sorcerer and Terminator armor giving lethal hits for both shooting and melee, it made it easier for my Terminators to tear down his monsters. He does manage to shish kebab my Demon Prince with his Swarm Lord, which is becoming a running theme for him, but with a combination of tanking damage, using movement and fallback abilities, and some clever positioning on my part, I was able to overrun his front lines, even with one of my own Forge Fiends blowing up in the middle of my army! At the end of turn 5, the score was 79 to 55 in my favor. A brutal slug match and an extremely fun game. Back and forth games are the best kind you can play in 40k because it really makes you and your opponent think of what to do with how little you have left. Though this game came down to me being able to outlast the slug match and just eat the sheer amount of damage his monsters could dish out. However, holy hell, I consider this to be my most fun game of all weekend. My opponent's name was Lee, and he was just awesome. Plus, his Tyranids were sick. Painted up as High Fleet Leviathan, and just look at these things, man! He was awesome, and I'm very glad to have played him. And that was day 1. Doing pretty well for myself. 2 wins, 1 loss, and the only loss was from an army that I knew I would struggle against. And I even managed to have only a 10-point difference in that game. All in all, I was in the best mood. Hell, afterwards, we went to a place called Wing Snobs, and holy fuck, those wings were good. Also, brought my friend Ramel, which, quick thing, he let me borrow his Forge Fiends for the tournament. Which, hey, Ramel, if you're watching this, thank you so damn much, mate. Also, Ramel was the Dark Angels player from my last tournament video. So, yeah, new anime rivalry / friendship unlocked. Then, we go into day 2. Okay, so, Tau are complicated for 10th edition. Their army clearly got hit after 9th edition, but their strength lies in their units supporting each other and relying on concentrated fire on single targets instead of going all in on units trying to one-shot. This army, however, was even stranger, as it was a Tau auxiliary army, a rare sight. Now, Tau auxiliaries are aliens that signed on with the Tau, mainly the Kroot and Vespid races, So imagine my shock when I don't see a single Fire Warrior or Crisis Suit. Just the Kong family. The army was made up of Commander Shadowsun, 3 Kroot Carnivore squads, 3 Hammerhead gunships, a squad of Hounds, 3 Kroot Rampager units, 2 Kroot Rider units, 2 Skyray gunships, 2 Stealth Suit units, and 2 Vespid Stingwings. Which again, hot damn, mad respect for doing his best to stick with just pure auxiliaries. The detachment, of course, was the Kroot Hunting Pack, which gives his Kroot Carnivores the battle line keyword, which makes them troops and gives them a 5+ invulnerable save against shooting attacks, and 6+ invulnerable saves against melee attacks. And the mission was Terraform, where you have to plant units on an objective and have them sit there and capture the objective. Once it's captured, every turn afterwards you score 4 points per objective you control, and an additional point per objective terraformed. Now, I have experience fighting Tau, as my brother plays them, and I played way more aggressively, pushing forward and holding the middle of the board. Which I quickly found out was the worst plan! When he came out swinging, his Kroot Rampagers were the equivalent of Diddy and Donkey Kong coming out of the jungle, and I was there, Captain K. Rool, about to experience what that Donkey Kong punch felt like. Spoilers, getting hit by 800 pounds of pure Kong cake sucks! You see, Rampagers have an ability called Kroot Line Breaker. When a Kroot Rampager squad charges into an enemy unit, for each model that ends in base contact, you get to roll a d6. Every 4 or higher you roll, you do d3 mortal wounds to the unit you charge. He has 6 of these things in a unit, and on average, they are killing 2 to 3 Terminators just by charging, along with the fact that they get Lance, increasing their strength when charging, and Sustained Hits 1, giving them more attacks on hit rolls of 6s with rerolls. It's accurate to say he was playing Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and I was the bongo controller. I heavily underestimated Kroot, and it was easy to do so, because for years, Games Workshop did nothing with these guys. And now all of a sudden, here's Diddy and Donkey peeling my Terminators open like I stole their goddamn banana horde. Now, he didn't table me, but let's just say Ahriman now has PTSD that is triggered when he hears Gangplank Galleon.mp3 being played. I lost pretty handily, 48 to 86. My opponent AJ, though? Fucking Chad, man! Bringing Kroot as a rogue pick was an awesome choice. And genuinely, even though he Donkey Konged me pretty hard, he gave me an experience against Kroot, which no one has ever done. So hey AJ, if you're watching this, thanks. Also, fucking ouch! Okay, going into this, the con got pretty packed, and I was frustrated that I couldn't get lunch because there was no time to wait in line, order food, wait for food, and then eat it before my next game. So I went into round 5 a little hangry. But I informed my opponent that my hangry was not directed at him, and genuinely, he was also a very sweet guy and a wonderful opponent. But oh, fuck Death Guard drones, dude! My opponent was running the Mortarian's Hammer Detachment, which meant aside from 2 Death Shroud squads and 2 Poxwalker units, his army was nothing but vehicles. We're talking 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, 3 Foetid Bloat drones with heavy launchers, 2 Foetid drones with 2 Plague Spewers, 3 Blight Haulers, a Lord of Contagion, and 2 Hellbrutes fitted for melee, which my fellow player from home, Denver, told me not to worry about. I should have fucking worried about them. Mortarian's Hammer allows the player to pick a certain number of enemy units, depending on game size, outside of 12 inches, and treat those units as being within their contagion range, which forces you to be aggressive, because if you don't push, their artillery will tear into you. But if you do push, you're walking into an armored column that's about to make the beating Donkey Kong gave me look like a goddamn head pat. I got creamed in this matchup. My units couldn't hurt their vehicles, his Hellbrutes got +1 to wound, and with -1 to my toughness and armor, it meant he was wounding my Terminators on 2s anyway. Drones were killing Terminators left and right, and it was just too much for my army to handle. By turn 3, I got tabled, which is a sort of rite of passage for Warhammer Opens. along with me being hangry and tired, I was also making mistakes left and right. Again, my opponent Mike, sweet dude and very understanding of my situation. I lost handily, 22 to 92. Now, Death Guard, World Eaters, and Thousand Suns are probably all going to get hit with point increases and nerfs after this tournament, but I also think some Death Guard units should lose the +1 to wound, as they already lower enemy toughness, and some of their weapons, like the Heavy Blight Launcher, need to lose a point of damage, as having these stats makes for way too powerful of a unit that can move fast, hide, pop out, and kill units twice or 3 times its cost with no issue at all. However, that's just my opinion, and if they want to keep those weapon stats, some point increases will be fine to balance things out. In that major humbling experience, I was able to get some food and went into round 6 with a full belly and renewed vigor. I was ready to finally... God damn it.
So that fire alarm was the equivalent of a long walk for a short glass of water.
Okay, so turns out one of the food trucks had an accident. Good to know. At least Games Workshop can advertise that the Canadian Open got so intense, it was lighting the event center on fire. Okay, on to round 6. Ah, finally! Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. I am finally fighting a loyalist army! However, when I saw my opponent's army, holy fuck was this guy dripped out! His army had a full display, lights, fake smoke, everything. It was sick as hell, and I hope he won Best Painted. His army included Lord Solar Leontis, the Zap Brannigan of 40k, Acadian Command Squad, a Rogaldorn Commander, Ursula Creed, a squad of Acadian Guardsmen, a Chimera, 2 Talroks, 2 artillery teams, a Mortar Heavy Weapons Squad, a Rogaldorn Tank, 2 Lehman Russ Vanquishers, and 3 Karskin Squads. The mission we played was Scorched Earth, a mission where you score points by holding the objective, but with the twist that you or your opponent can destroy the objectives, scoring a big thing of points when you do. So it becomes a balancing game of standing on the objectives for as long as possible, then destroying them before your opponent can grab them. This mission was perfect for my army. However, there was a lot in his army that could cause problems. Karskins hit hard, and they can take Meltamines, which do mortal wounds on a 2+. Shame that my opponent rolled 3 1s in a row. His Rogaldorn tanks failed to hurt me reliably in shooting, really only hurting me by charging me down. But then I would hurt it back just as much, if not more. I blew apart his infantry, mind-fucked his tanks, and just crushed anything standing in my way. My Demon Prince got blown away by Leontis, but I just responded by wiping his unit out with Bolter Fire and then giving Leontis the Mace Windu treatment. Where I got stomped by Death Guard, I burnt through the Imperial Guard, 100 to 38. Now, my opponent admitted he wasn't there much for the competitive part of the game. He's more of a hobbyist. Again, super sweet guy, and extremely talented. He may have lost the game, but he won the drip game, and I think that's amazing. As well, he gave me, my wife, and my brother a set of dice each, and some sick coins. So yeah, good lad. So, my last game that I played was Sunday, and it was my last game because we were tired and wanted to go home. However, many people who didn't make it to top 8 also headed home after game 6 or 7, because they either wanted to enjoy the last day of the convention or go home. However, I wanted to play my round 7, and my opponent, funnily enough, was a Tau player who was playing his round 6 right beside my round 6 table. My opponent was running a Cult Star Commander, 2 Commanders and Enforcer Battlesuits, a Breacher team, 3 Crisis Suit teams, 2 Hammerheads, a Crew Carnivore squad, a Crew Farstalker squad, a Pathfinder squad, 2 Stealth squads, a Piranha, and 2 Riptide Battlesuits. His detachment was the Grotmus Prototype Detachment, which increased his unit's weapon range by 6, giving him a lot of space to work with. along with a lot of upgrades to his commanders to increase their weapons' damage, armor penetration, and strength. The last mission was terraform again. Me and my opponent just stared at it, both grumbled at the same time, laughing it off, and went at it. Our armies were equally matched, trading unit for unit, blow for blow, objective for objective. As we played through it though, it was becoming apparent that he couldn't blow me off the board, so he kept pushing me off objectives instead. And he hit a wall pretty quick there, as my army just shrugged off a lot of we could dish out. But the true game-ending move was when he wanted to charge his remaining hammerhead into my rubric squad. If he succeeded, he would have used the tank shock stratagem to cause tons of damage, and if that happened, he could move his remaining Kroot squad onto the objective, securing it. But I overwatched the hammerhead, and my unit's Soul Reaper cannon managed to nail it and destroy it, knocking off its final wound and causing the game to domino effect. By the end of the game, he lacked any real way of hurting me, but with how it played out, I had no way to chase down his remaining units. So all we could do was calculate the final points, and the game ended with... Hell yeah! Victory! The last game of the weekend was a win, and my opponent was super happy, saying it was such an awesome game, and he was glad to learn how Thousand Suns played. So all in all, ending the tournament on that note, me and my wife and my brother headed home after we took one last walk around the convention and got a gift for our roommate for watching our cat for the weekend. 4-hour trip later, I finally got home and started to think how lucky I am, how far I've come, how wild all of that was. Hell, while I was there, a head judge asked me about my YouTube. I got recognized by a few of the players, and I got to meet new and amazing people I never would have been able to meet before. And without your guys' support, I probably would have never been able to experience this. I got my start on TikTok, as many of you know, and due to several factors, I left that place, which was scary. But I made new friends, grew a community that is truly supportive of me, and met some truly amazing and talented people. As well, before I left for the tournament, I kinda took a bad financial hit, and without a second thought, when I made dono streams to help make up the difference, you all came out to support me. So I'm going to read off those who donated to me on my Ko-fi. Thank you so very much to TB Skyen, Modesty Jorts, Wolfen675, Blade Charge, Afro Squirrel, Coming Soon Entertainment, Lost in Spirals, TCOM, Skelaki, Aramis, TCOM, my entire mod staff for just being amazing, to the Collab Den as well for just being so supportive and wonderful, and genuinely thank everyone who watched my videos and subscribed. And to those who couldn't donate, your continued support by watching, sharing, and subscribing to my videos and channel is more than enough. Thank you all so much. And next time, we have 2 videos coming down the pipeline. First, an update to the Armageddon storyline, as that finally came out. And well, I realized that I couldn't talk about Gathering Storm without talking about the Horus Heresy. So expect that storyline soon. But until then, thank you so much to everyone for your love and support, and I'll see you all next time.